Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Cherie here. We are going to continue on with our Harmony Quilt Sew Along. In part 1, we did all the cutting involved with the quilt. And in this part 2 video, we are here today and we're just going to sew this quilt top through from start to finish in this video. So sit back. You might want to get a cup of coffee or some tea. This is going to be a long one, but I wanted to put the entire sewing portion together in one video, okay? All right, let's get started. Let's take a quick look at the overall quilt layout. As you can see here, we are basically building up larger blocks and panels that we're then going to go and piece together. So we're starting at the center and kind of working our way out, okay? So the instructions are starting on page 8. I have this first block, which is the center block, laid out on the cutting table right now. So we're starting with our panel. Remember the panel is directional. You see the bird is at the top, so make sure you don't accidentally have that flipped sideways or upside down. Make sure your bird is at the top. And then you want to make sure that your butterflies, which are going to be on the corner, are also, right side up. And then these floral panels that are on the side, these strips are basically non-directional. And so, you don't have to worry too much about those. And so what we're going to do is we're basically going to build together 3 segments that we're going to then join together to make the one large block. So we're going to start with this upper row here. We're starting with one of our butterflies, our butterfly squares, 3.5-inch squares, which is F. You can see here the arrow is also reminding you here that all your prints need to be pointing up, the top up here. And so we need to take one butterfly, and then we need this middle floral segment, and we're going to stitch those together, right sides facing. Remember, we're using 1/4-inch seam allowance all throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and get those pinned. And then on the other side, we need another butterfly. Butterfly is pointing up, right sides facing. And we'll get a couple pins in there to do also our 1/4-inch seam. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with this middle section. I'm going to take this floral strip, just flip it over, lining up those raw edges. Getting this pinned. And then repeating with the other side. Just taking the strip, flipping it over. Pin. And pin. Okay. So we have that segment. We have our top segment. Let's get this third one pinned. It's getting pinned just like that upper row. The 2 butterflies on either side of our floral strip. So we're going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew all of 3 of these together at the same time. And yeah, let's head to the sewing machine. The stitching for this entire quilt is going to be using a 1/4-inch seam allowance. So if you have a 1/4-inch quilting foot attachment for your sewing machine, I'd recommend you attach that. I'm using my little magnetic attachment here, but my quilting sewing machine, but my machine also has the ruler here. I'm just putting this here so that, I'm really making sure that I'm not drifting off. I want everything to really have the correct seam allowance so that when I join them together, the joining is very smooth, okay? So I'm going to show this just on this first center block, but basically we're going to be creating these blocks in these segments and just piecing them together. It's all pretty straightforward, which is why this is considered a beginner pattern. And really what's making it the advanced beginner is just all that fussy cutting. So the hardest part is actually done. All right, let's start sewing. I have just a neutral off-white thread in here on the bobbin and the upper. I'll use something different when I do the quilting. But for the piecing part, this is gonna work great. I got my raw edge butted up against my little 1/4 inch foot indicator there. And then I'm just going to stitch. Very straightforward. I do like to back tack mine because when I press the seams open, I don't want those seams to come undone. They are small seams. I'm going to just repeat this with these other 2 pieces here, and then we will meet back at the cutting table. I'll show you how to do the next steps. Okay, so here are those 3 sections sewn together. I'm going to go to my ironing station and get the seams pressed open. And, you know, just in case someone's a true beginner, I'm going to go in with the iron and press this flat. So I'm just finger pressing it now, just to show you how it's going to line up. But I'm going to go and actually press that flat. I'm going to press it from the wrong side. Then I'm going to flip it over, press it out from the right side too to make sure those nice and flat. But anyway, I just want to show you quickly because I'm going to move on to piecing this together, sewing this together. So you see here, so if we look here, this is the bottom one, right? And see how those seams are going to need to line up right there on the corner and then right here on that corner, okay? So let me get these pressed and then we'll come back and we'll do the pinning of this section together and stitch that. And then just again, for anyone who's never done this before, so you just have a concept of how we're building out from the center. But then we're basically doing the same thing, you know, conceptually over and over again as we build the quilt top. I'll be back. Okay, so those are pressed. And I'm going to go ahead and pin the top butterfly strip just to show you how it's done, and then we'll do the bottom. And then I'm going to move on and sew these pieces together, the rest of the quilt. Okay, so again, line it up and then just come and flip it over. Then what you want to do is you're going to match up those seams. So I'm going to start by pinning at the 2 seam. I'm going to start by pinning at the seam first to make sure I have those lined up properly. Same thing on this side, and then I'm going to come in and pin, you know, the remaining in the edge. But I just want to start by making sure that is lined up. Okay, now we're going to just pin the rest. Use as many pins as you need to. I'll come back and finish that up off camera, but then we're going to do the same thing. And I'm just showing you this because we do have some directional pieces, and so this is what you do to make sure you don't accidentally attach things upside down. So again, lay it how it needs to be once it's sewn, and then go ahead and flip it up, okay, so that the right sides are touching. That way you know you've pinned it in the right direction. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this, repeat, matching the seams, and then using as many pins or clips as you like in between. All right. So I'm going to finish getting this pinned, and I'm going to go to the sewing machine And I'm going to do the same thing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to stitch straight down these 2 edges, and then I'm going to press them open. Okay, so we got those stitched, and let's kind of have a peek at one of the corners so you can see how we have, you can see here how we have matched up those seams nicely. We have those all stitched together. Now what we're going to do is press open this final portion of the seams, and we're going to set this aside.
You knew all the answers and knew what's to come. Trying not to be so self-absorbed. They don't care, 'cause people get so easily bored. You better stay in those arms forever, where happy thoughts can live again. Yeah, we got older but still good together. We got the vibe, yeah, you and I, still got the vibe, still got the vibe.
All right, so we are moving on to step 2. We need to sew together these units. And so we need 4 different fabrics. We need fabric E, 3.5 inch squares. We need fabric G, 3.5 inch squares. We need fabric F, which are also 3.5 inch squares. And then we need fabric M. And from fabric M, we cut a couple different size squares. We need the 3.5 inch squares of fabric M. The rest of these will go back on the side, all right? So now look at the arrangement. We're gonna I'll piece together with you guys unit 1, but just to point out, the directions are very clear. You're gonna be sewing your rows. So I'm gonna sew a G to an M, an E to a G to an E to an F. Then I'm gonna take GM and sew that to EG. Then I'm gonna take that GE edge and sew it to the EG edge. And then I'm gonna sew the GE edge to the EF edge. And that will create the unit. Couple things I want you to pay attention to. These arrows are indicating which direction your motifs should be going in. So here I want my butterflies up. Down here, the butterflies will be down. Here, G will be going to the left. G will be going to the left. So just watch those arrows, which are telling you the direction to lay your fabrics, okay? Okay, let's get unit 1 laid out, and then we'll start stitching that together. Okay, so here is my layout for unit 1. Remember you are choosing the butterflies that you want to use. There's no specific ones you need to place, so this is what I chose. And so again, I'm going to sew these 2 together, these 2 together, these 2 together, and these 2 together. And back. Okay, friends, so let's have a look. I took the first sections. I got a little ahead of myself. Kind of did 2 steps instead of the 1. So let me just recap. So this is our unit 1A. So I have my G next to M. The butterflies are going up. Then I have an E with a G. And so I sewed G to M, E to G. I pressed those seams open, And then I joined those two units to one another. So this unit GM was joined with EG. I got that done, then did the same thing down here for the next one. So this is G with E. So this is G sewn to E, and then E sewn to an F, again with the arrows going up. And then I joined those two segments together to get this basically 4 block. And now I'm going to turn that into the 8 block by sewing these two units together. So just pay attention again, always lay it how you want it to be, and then flip that seam, flip that over, and then just flip it over on top of each other. Actually, I need to press the seam open. It did say to nest the seams, so, you know, having seams going towards the different motifs and alternating them. I decided to just press my seams open. Yeah, so you do whichever you prefer to do. So we're going to get these pressed open and stitch those 2 4-patch blocks together.
Thought you knew all the answers and knew what to come. Try not to be so self-absorbed. They don't care, 'cause people get so easily bored. You better stay in those arms forever, where happy thoughts can live again. Yeah, we got older but still good together, together. 'Cause you and I, we got the vibe, we got the vibe. Yeah, you and I, still got the vibe, still got the vibe. Young ones come crushing down. They wanna feel the sun. Don't know what's in it now. They thought they seen the light. You better stay in those arms forever, where happy thoughts can live again. Yeah, we got older but still good together, together. You and I, still got the vibe, still got the vibe. Yeah, you and I, still got the vibe, still got the vibe.
All right, so now I have gone and I've chain pieced all the rest of the segments. So the remaining 7 segments, again, following the figure 2. And yeah, I'm going to repeat the remaining piecing to get these remaining 7 units assembled. Okay, so all my blocks are done. They are all pressed. This is 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. Make sure you triple check your figure 2 to be sure that you did not mix anything up. I had a couple where as I was sewing, I lost concentration. I sewed the wrong sides. So I had to take those out and resew them. Definitely, this is one where you got to, because you're changing the directions, you want to focus. And so, yeah, I had to redo a few of the little squares, the little units, before doing the big piecing back. And then what I did was I came in and on each of the M blocks, because there's only one M in each of these, that's where I put the label to indicate which unit that I was working on. Normally I use some washi tape, but I didn't have any readily available, so I just used some scrap paper and a pen. And so, yeah, got those labeled. And then that also is going to remind me, right? I know that this is always going to be at the top of these units. And so that helps me not get turned around too much. Okay, so I got all of them done, a total of 8. And now we're going to move on to the next step. Let me slow down real quick because there's one thing I am going to do. You can see on some of here, I have little bits kind of sticking out. The edge isn't totally straight. I'm actually going to go through with my clear ruler and rotary color and just straighten all those off and make sure I have nice square corners. I'm not cutting down anyway, because I'm not cutting down the block because I don't want to change the dimensions of this, right? I'm just getting any little, you know, sneaky corners that are poking out. I'm getting those cut off. All right. And all the extra strings. Okay. I'm going to do that off camera. Let's go to step 3. Okay. So step 3. Step 3, we are going to be joining together Fabrics M, the 4.5-inch squares from Fabric M, along with Fabric K. We cut Fabric K. We cut what's called K1 and K2. Basically, we have our little floral bouquets on opposite sides of the squares. And then we have 8 of these. So we have 4, 4, and 8. Let's look a little bit closer here. What we're going to be doing, we have to draw a diagonal on the wrong side of each of these squares of M, the 4.5-inch squares, just as indicated here. And then we're going to line that up corner to corner with K1 or K2 based on, you know, what it's showing here. So on K1, it's going to go on left-hand side. On K2, it's going to be over on the right-hand side. So we're going to make 4 of each of those. Then these new units are going to be called Unit 2A and Unit 2B. So I'll demonstrate on one of each, K1 and K2, so you can see the directions that you need to lay things down. Okay, so I have my 2 squares M laid out. I'm just going to use my disappearing ink marker, and I'm going to mark the diagonal. Okay. This fabric M is not directional, and so I'm just going to do my fabric lines all, you know, on the same side, and then I'll flip them back and forth as I need to. So I have those 2 marked. Just make sure, I should have labeled these as I cut them. So this is K1, this is K2. K1, you have the full posy closest in towards what's my right. And then K2, that full posy is closest into what is my left, okay? And so you're going to put your square, let's just take one. So you're going to put your square of M1 right here in the corner, lining that up. I'm going to put a pin along the diagonal section. And then we're going to stitch along this marked diagonal line. All right. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So here I'm laying, for K2, I'm laying my M1 square in the right hand side corner, lining that up at the bottom. And again, putting pins because I'm going to stitch down that center line, that diagonal line, okay? Okay, so I've stitched down that diagonal line on both of them. And now we need to come in and trim. So we're going to trim this down to a 1/4 inch seam allowance and press that seam out. You can use your ruler. I'm just kind of eyeballing it with my scissors. Add that to the scrap bin. Okay, so you can see this is what we have generated. And so I need to press those seams, all right? So we see here, this is K1 with our little triangle of M here in the lower left corner. And then K2 has it over here in the lower right-hand corner, okay? I'm gonna do the remaining 3 of each and get these pressed. All right, we have completed those 8 segments. I got them all pressed. And again, I'm still pressing my seams open. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I prefer pressing seams open versus nesting. So that's just what I'm going to do, but you can follow the directions and nest your seams. And then here are the little triangle scraps that are left over from forming those little blocks. So we're going to add this to our scrap pile. Those will be cute triangles to use in one of the bonus projects. Again, I'm going to keep my blocks grouped. I have my little labels on here indicating this is unit 2A, this is now unit 2B, and I'm going to put those aside. And I just want to emphasize again, I mean, you don't have to relabel these things, but I'm just finding this very helpful as I go along, keeping track of the blocks, because then when we go to assemble them, this is the nomenclature that they're going to be using as we build out the blocks. And so, yeah, it just helps you to stay organized and not mix up anything. Okay, we're on step 4 now, and we're going to play around with our blue somewhere fabric. We need our blocks B1 and B2, and those are the ones that are cut as squares, or as rectangles rather, and where we have the floral bouquet at the bottom, and then we've captured the rainbow up at the top. And then we need the 6 3/4 inch squares of fabric M. So this is the last of the fabric M fabric that we cut out. And we're going to do, you know, a very similar thing to what we just did in step 3. So I won't take you through that. Basically, we are going to be marking on the wrong side with our disappearing ink, the diagonal midline, lining it up to the corners, and then doing that stitch to create very similar styled blocks to what we created when we made units 2A and 2B, okay? We still have these bouquets on points left over from fabric B, and we need to set these aside. We don't use these yet, so put these back with the rest of the fabrics. All right, I'm getting these things prepared, and I realize there's one thing that I will make note of, especially for, you know, those of us that are beginners. Sometimes you miss these little nuances. And so just be careful when you lay your square. Make sure you have your diagonal going in exactly the direction that's shown. So in the previous one, we had the diagonal, we had the square placed at the bottom, and the diagonal was in the opposite direction. So don't place it like this, okay? See, that's different. We don't want to sew like this. We need that place like this. And we're going to sew like this, okay? Because this fabric M is going to be in the upper portion of this block and not in the lower portion, right? That's not, if you sew the wrong way, if you sewed it like this, that would end up in the lower portion. And that's not what we're going for, okay? So just wanted to note that. I hope that was clear, but just pay attention always to the orientation when they're laying these squares on top of other pieces for this diagonal sewing, okay? Okay, friends, those are ready. And you can see here, we have unit 3A, 4 of those, unit 3B. Again, I'm gonna get them labeled and put aside. And then we have more triangles for the scrap pile. Okay, so we're moving on to step 5. Now we're gonna start to bring these previous 3 unit blocks that we have created. We're going to start to bring those together. So we need to pull our units 2A and 2B that we just created. We also need units 3A and 3B that we just created. And we need the fabric strips that are 1 1/4 inches by 12 1/2 inches of fabric D, that blueberry floral. So let's pull those together, and then I'll show you how to lay these out to build these blocks together, okay? Okay, so here's what we need. We're going to start to assemble these. So what we need to do, because this is the seam here, the side that we need to attach these segments to, right? We need to attach this way. We need to sew this block to this block first, press the seams open. We'll sew this block to this block, press the seams open, and then we'll create the final block by attaching this unit to one side of the strip, and then we'll attach this unit to the other side of the strip. And we have to do that 4 times. So this new unit will be unit 4, okay?
sitting here on my own. I think of you, you're on my mind, you know. To me that's alright. Green grass on my neighbor's lawn. Maybe I should take a stroll. And to me that's alright. To me that's alright. I spend my days just dreaming about you. Well, now that's just what I will do. I'm telling you, the sky is blue, the sun is high. I'm sitting here on my own. I think of you, you're on my mind, you know. To me that's alright. Green grass on my neighbor's lawn. Maybe I should take a stroll. And to me that's alright. You know, to me that's alright. You know, to me that's alright.
Okay, so here are our blocks. I have them oriented as indicated here in figure B, right? So we have our bouquets facing up. At the top, we have our fabric M, this dappled and guava over on the sides. We have our bouquet, our somewhere here at the bottom. And now what we need to do is sandwich in our strips here of this all over floral. So we're going to take one strip, and first we're going to just pin it down the side here, and you can see that length should match up if you're keeping your 1/4 inch seams consistent. It should sew together and it should fit pretty perfectly. If it doesn't, you might have to do a little bit of trimming, but just be careful. As I mentioned earlier, you know, use a seam gauge, put a piece of tape. I'm using my little magnetic seam placement on my sewing machine. And yeah, you just want to get that consistently. And I'll give you a quick tip here. If you're pretty new to doing these small seams, use your ruler and just come in from the raw edge, mark out the 1/4 inch, and just draw yourself a line. I used to teach a lot of beginner classes in my shop at a brick and mortar fabric shop. And that's how I showed beginners to do it. We drew lines and they sewed on the line. And it works great, okay? All right, I'm gonna go sew this one side together. We'll press that seam open and we'll come back and flip it and add this segment to complete unit 4. So we've added the one side. I'm gonna press this open quickly, and then I'm going to add the second side. All right, got that stitched. Come in and press this open so you can see what this looks like. As someone who primarily sews apparel, that 1/4 inch seam is very, very small for me. But I tell you, this is part of why I want to do more of these quilt projects. Is it's, you know, it's a skill that you develop by doing. And I absolutely love quilts. I love making them, and I do want to start challenging myself to make more intricate quilts. And so, yeah, I'm having actually a lot of fun with this. It's funny too, because having something like this with all the different fussy cutting, you know, you're not just going in and cutting a bunch of squares and piecing them together. You have to really focus on how you're cutting and where you're cutting and how you're piecing and if it's flipped right side up or not. And I don't know. I think it's really good for this 50-something-year-old brain. This project is forcing me to slow down and focus in a different way when I sew. You know, it's been a lot of fun. And so look at that. That looks nice, I think, right? So I'm pretty pleased with that block. I think it's cute. We have everything going in the right direction, right? Posies, blossoms, bouquets are all facing up. And this is unit 4. As I said, I got to do this 3 more times. All right. So I'm going to do that off camera and then we'll have a look at them when they're all done. So we have our 4 unit 4 pieces stitched together. I think these are darling, and you can see here how it's important to follow the fussy cutting. So, and that's why we were doing those mirror images. So you see here where we had the half rainbow on one side versus the other. So then when it comes together, you kind of have this rainbow in the middle of the strip. Same thing with where our bouquets are lying. And so, yeah, now what we're going to do, we're at step 6. And so we need to sew our unit 1 blocks to either side of one of these unit 4s. And that's going to make our next block. Okay. So we're going to make block 2A by combining one of the unit 4 pieces to 1A and 1B. So they're going to go on either side, 1A, 1B. And then we're going to put 1C and 1D on another one of our unit 4s. We're going to put 1E and 1F onto another one. And then we need to put unit 1G and 1H onto the sides of the final unit 4. So that's going to create our 4 block number 2. So we're going to have 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D. Okay. So this is, you know, again, very straightforward. We're going to take one of our unit 4s, okay? And then, right, this needs to look like this. This is going to be here. So we're going to take it, and we're going to flip that. Oops, let's get this extra out the way. So that's unit 1A. We're going to flip it over, pin along that raw edge, and we're going to take one. Whoop, listen, make sure you got your right blocks. That's why you need to label them. So here is 1B, okay? And we're going to flip that, pin and sew along that line and along that line. And then they'll open back up and we will press them out. So I'm going to do this with all 4 because, again, we've seen this kind of sewing in this tutorial already. So I'm not going to have you guys watch me do all this. This is the part where, you know, we're just building up these larger blocks from the units that we've created, okay? I'll see you back here when I get these done. All right, so let's just do a quick check-in, see where we are. We have completed block 1. That was our central panel that we did first. We've completed our 4 block 2s, A, B, C, and D. That's what this is. Now we're moving on to build the units that are going to be used to build block 3, which are these corners here. And then we'll be able to join blocks 2 and 3 to block 1. And we'll have this large framework here done. Okay, so let's move on to the next steps. Okay, so I have pulled all the fabrics that we're going to be using as we build out our blocks, our for block 3. So we're going to be working with fabric J, fabric I, and then we're going to be using these final pieces from fabric B as well. That's this little corner point here. Okay, so starting here at figure 1, we need to build this unit 5. We need 4 or 5A, 4, 5B. So 5A is using our piece J1 and our piece I1. Unit 5B is using our piece J2 along with our piece I2, okay? So we're just going to sew these raw edges together, right sides facing, with our 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go through, get all 8 of these pinned and sewn. Again, just take that piece, flip it over, line up your right sides, and get that pinned. So I'm going to do this with all of them at the same time and get the seams pressed open, and we'll be back to have a look at that unit. Okay, we got our units 5A and 5B all set. We should have 4 of each. The seams have been pressed open. We'll get those restacked. And then now we need to come in and attach our piece B3. And that will give us the formation of unit 6. We should have 4 of those. So just remember the direction of B3. You want to have your posy going this way. So the stems are here on the, what is my right hand side, okay? And we're going to put unit 5B is going to go up here. Let me move this up some so we can see. So so we have here B3, we have here unit 5A, and then we have here unit 5B. And that's how that's going to come together to give us a larger pieced triangle. And we need to do that 4 times. So same thing that we've been doing, one by one, just go in, take one unit, flip it, stitch that straight down, press that seam open, and then come in and add on unit 5B, stitch down here, and then press that open, okay? So I'm going to get those done, and we'll have 4 of our unit 6s ready for the next step. Okay, so that piecing is done. We have now constructed unit 6, and we have 4 of those. You can see here, we followed that layout. We have our posies in the right direction. We have our floral bouquets pointing in the right direction. And yeah, now we're going to move on to step 9. Okay, so now we're moving on to the final portion that we need to create in order to build out block 3. That starts here at step 9, figure 9. And so we're going to need, let's get this together. So for the one side here, we have I3, then we need J3, and then we need I5, okay? And then to build out that mirror image, we need I4, and we're going to connect to that J4. And then finally, we're going to connect J6. So we'll be building out these units. So I'm going to just take these pieces to the sewing machine together. I'm going to pin this one here to the middle section, stitch along that side, and then add this to the middle section, stitch this side, and then I'll come back and get these all pressed open. And I'm just going to repeat on this side, do them all the same. And then we'll have 4 of unit 7A, and we'll have 4 of unit 7B. Okay, so our units are complete. We have 4 of unit 7A, 4 of unit 7B. I'm going to get these, the little extras on the edges trimmed off so that these lines are straight. Then after I get those, all cleaned up and straightened out, we're going to move on to step 10, which is placing our piece J5 in the middle of these. So we're going to have our J5 unit in the middle with this edge down. Blossoms should be cut so that they're facing up. And then we will be attaching unit 7B on the right hand side. Unit 7A will go over on the left hand side. So same thing, we're just going to flip those onto this one at a time and stitch those at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's get that done. We'll end up with 4 of these, which they are then calling unit 8. All right. Okay, so that piecing is done. And here we have 4 of our unit A's. And yeah, very straightforward, very cute. I'm excited to see this coming together. All right, we are making progress. So we are now here at step 11. And so in step 11 is telling us to sew 1 each of unit 6 together with 1 of unit 8 along the long edge. And that's going to give us our block number 3. And we're going to do that 4 times. And our unfinished square should measure 12.5 inches. So we'll double check that, get it all squared off after we do this joining. And so here are our long sides. We're going to put them right side facing as we have been doing. I'm going to stick some pins in, and we're just going to sew straight along this long seam 1/4 inch, and I'll get those pressed open. And then we'll do the same thing to create 3 more. Okay, friends, so block 3 is complete. We have 4. As I said before, I'm going to go in now. The seams are all pressed open. And I'm going to go now. Well, I have a couple of things I might have to repress, but first I'm going to just go trim off all the strings and square this up. All right, and then put that aside, and we are moving on to the border. I just want to show you guys really quickly, anyone curious. So this is my 12.5-inch square. And so it's not much, but you can see how I have this little bit down here, a little bit on the edges, tiny little bit up here on the top. I'm just gonna trim all of that off with my rotary cutter. Then that way too, I can make sure I have nice 90-degree angles with my corners. All right, so now we are moving on to step 12. It's telling us to arrange 2 each of fabrics I and L. These are 2.5-inch by 5.25-inch rectangles. We need to combine 2 of each together according to figure 12. So we're going to make 4 of unit 9A, which starts with our yellow, jungle, and maze and alternates. And then we need to make 4 of unit 9B, which starts with our dappled and candy and alternates. All right. So these again are just going to be straightforward, straight seam sewing. Take your 2 pieces, right sides together, and I'm going to sew right along that line, 1/4 inch, open it up, and then add to this side another yellow piece, and then another of the dappled. And then, yeah, I'm going to go get those done all together at the machine. Okay, so we have our segments sewn and ironed or pressed. With this one, I decided to press the seams towards the left for all of them. And we have 4 of unit 9A, 4 of unit 9B. Okay, next up as we continue to build our border pieces is step 13. And here we are making square units. They are calling them units 10A and 10B. We have to make 4 each. We are looking here at figure 13. So if we have a quick look at what we fussy cut here, N1 being joined to D1 on one side, and then we have N3 being joined to D1 on the other side. And then if we come over here to the mirror image that we're building, we have N4 being joined to D2 on one side, and then on the other side of D2, we're going to be adding N2. So you can see here we will be building up mirror image blocks there. So yeah, that's why it was important to make sure you were really flipping your template pieces properly to create mirror images of those different fussy cut sections, okay? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and piece that together just as we have been doing, straight stitching, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have completed step 13. We have 4 of unit 10A ready to go, 4 of unit 10B ready to go. And I just pressed the seams towards the fussy cut sections on these. And just because this was so thin, I didn't want to press the seams open and have overlap there. And yeah, I'm just going to get these edges straightened off and make sure my corners are 90 degrees. And then we're going to go on to step 14. Step 14 is basically joining our units for the border together. So we need to make 4 of these border units that are going to frame around the quilt. So we're going to start with 1 of our units 9A. And we get to pull in this beautiful little climbers. And just pay attention to the guide for the direction that the birds need to face. So for, yeah, they're going to go facing down this way on this particular one. So we're going to have 9A. Then we're going to put 1 of unit O on top. Then we're going to come in with 1 of our 10As. That's going to get placed at that other end. Okay. And it's going to be at that end. And then we need a 10B. That's like the center. And then we will repeat adding an O. So we're going to get the other O so that our birds on this side are facing in the same direction as this side. So we have O here and then O reversed here, making sure that our bird beaks are facing in the same direction, okay? And then we're going to wrap up with a 9B. And so you see here, the maze jungle will be on the end here and on the end here, okay? All right, I'm going to get these stitched. And again, the figure 14 lace this all exactly out. Just follow that, okay? We're going to do that 4 times. And then we will be pretty close to starting to get this quilt finished up, this quilt top. Yeah, so let's get these borders finished. Okay, our 4 border pieces are assembled, and we are in the home stretch. I'm going to have to make some space on my table here so we can start to lay out this quilt top and do some assembling. So we're here at the quilt top assembly section. It is telling us basically to just follow that quilt layout diagram, which we will do. And it's, you know, typed out in words so you can read that. So just visually here, just talking our way through this, we are going to start with block 1, which is our large center block. On one side of it, I'm going to add block B2C. And then on the other side, I will add block B2B. And then I'm going to put that aside. And then I'm going to assemble this next row up here, which has block 2A in the center. And then it has a B3 on one side and a B3 on the other side. Looking at that orientation, making sure your bouquets are in the upper corners. Going to repeat that down here. That's just a mirror image of that. Again, noting the direction that the pieces will be pointing. So I will have this section sewn together, this section sewn together, this section sewn together. And then I'm going to sew this section to this side here, this section to this side here. And we're going to have a large completed section. That's our center. Then to that, we need to add our border. And we're going to do the same thing. You're going to start here with a C block, which is the one block that we have cut aside from these final outer border strips. So let's see what we have left. We have this here, and then we have these strips here, okay? And so that's what this is here. We're going to put this block C here. We're going to attach one of our border strips that we just assembled. And then on the other end, we're going to put another one of these. This one block here is going to be turned in that direction. We're going to add it to one side of this larger block that we've assembled. And then we'll add another one to that side. And then we're going to repeat what we did up here, down here. We're going to take a block C, add that final border, and add another block C, okay? And then that's going to get attached to the bottom of this section here. This is going to get attached to the top of that, okay? Then the final thing is just going around all 4 sides, adding a strip of this. So as I build this out, I'll just be popping in and showing you what those sections look like, okay? All right, so I got all the segments that I need to sew together. I got them pinned together, and I'm going to take this pile to the sewing machine, get the seams sewn and pressed open, and then we'll have a look at what those segments look like before we start the next round of quilt assembly. Okay, friends, so we have that large middle section assembled. Now what we have to do is add these remaining 2 pieces that we joined together, one to the top, one to the bottom. And the only thing you're doing here is just remembering your direction, right? This blue section is what touches this middle border. The magenta will be facing up. Our butterflies are also facing up, okay? So we're joining these 2 edges, which means we have to take this one and flip it over. And we're going to pin straight across from corner to corner. And then we're going to repeat that on the bottom. And then same thing, just pay attention to your orientation, right? It's the blue side that's getting attached to this middle section because we want our butterflies going up. And this magenta portion should be facing away from that middle block. So just keep checking this quilt layout to make sure you are not inadvertently, attaching things flipped upside down, okay? It's very straightforward though. You just have to pay attention. since these are directional. All right, so the upper and bottom rows have been attached. We got a big block here. It's bigger than my cutting table right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead. Let me show you where we are. And again, I'm not showing me sewing these huge pieces because honestly, it's just, you're just sewing straight seams over and over and over again. So we have this segment here built. So here, now what we're going to do is add to either side of that our remaining two pieced border sections. Okay, so again, just look at the orientation. On this side, we have a V coming in like this. And then on this side, we have our V coming in like this, right? So this is the side here that's going to join with the raw edges of the larger block, okay? So I'm going to get that pieced and yeah, we'll be back. Okay, so the two borders are added to the side. And now we have to repeat that to the top and the bottom. So we are now going to add this strip that we created by adding those little plum bouquets to this border piece that we pieced together. We have to add it to the top and the bottom now. All right, so all of this inner portion here has been assembled. And the final thing we have to add is this border of the jungle print in hot. And so the directions are telling us to piece these all together and then go back in, and we need to cut 4 strips. 2 are going to go on the side of the quilt, and then 2 are going to go on the top of the quilt. So we need to cut 2 pieces that are 65 inches long. Those are for the outer borders. And then we need to cut 2 that are 61 inches long. Those are for the top and bottom. And so we're going to sew those shorter pieces, the 61-inch pieces, one to the top, one to the bottom. Get those seams pressed, and then we're going to add the 65-inch borders to the sides. So you got to do the 2 tops first, and then you do the sides last, okay? So I'm going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew these 2.5-inch strips that we cut in part 1 of this video. I'm going to sew them together end to end, cutting off this the salvage edge first, and then yeah, I'm going to proceed. So let's go get this final step of this quilt assembly done so we can look at this finished quilt top. Okay, friends, so I brought this up and just laid it out on the floor real quick. The camera's just not even picking up the colors properly. This is so pretty. I love this thing. But this was great practice in piecing, fussy cutting. And I have to say, it's given me that kind of push to work on some more intricate and complicated quilt projects that I've been wanting to do and avoiding doing because I just already knew it was going to take a lot of time and a lot of patience. And so, yeah, I am thrilled with this. I hope you guys enjoyed this so long. So I'm going to wrap up part 2 quickly. Part 3, we will get this finished up with the backing, quilting, and binding, all right? So that'll be in a few weeks. I have a bunch of videos in the queue that I put on the back burner because I was so excited about this. So I'm gonna get back on track, and then we'll finish this quilt up plus the other quilts, all right? Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.